Hello, I am Amy Bush. This is my intersectionality video. If I'm constantly looking to the side, it's just because my notes are right here, so I'm sorry if I'm looking away a lot. Okay, the 5 markers that I chose for me are being poor or lower class during my childhood, being mixed, I'm half Mexican and half white, being a Christian, and being a student, specifically a university student. That was very important to my family. And then having OCD. I got diagnosed with OCD when I was 16, and yes, those are my markers. How these markers have influenced my educational experiences. I'm just gonna break them down one by one. So lower class, being lower class makes me very generous to my students. I couldn't afford things, and it was very embarrassing, and I do not want a single kid to feel embarrassed. So I will buy supplies, I will buy food so they have snacks. I keep a jacket in the room for the kids in case they get cold. That's very important. Not all of them can afford a jacket. I wash it at the end of the week. And then brushing and cleaning students' hair. Some of my students have special needs, and their parents can't get them to wash their hair. But I have a sink, and during either specials or lunch, some of my students will let me wash their hair. So I have shampoo and conditioner, and of course this is with parents' consent. It was all parent talk out, and I just don't want that kid to be embarrassed. I don't want other kids to point it out because they don't understand. So being lower class makes me so conscious of I don't want the kid to ever feel embarrassed about it. Being mixed. I grew up very, I was always told oh, you're white. And I was always so proud to be Mexican. I was way closer to my mom's family, and she's still Mexican. So that it's very important to me. And so when people would say your last name is Bush, you're white, it would make me so angry because I'm fluent in Spanish. So I talk Spanish to my students, and I would talk Spanish to my classmates. And so after they knew me, they would know, but it would be so frustrating. So representation, super huge. My students, I don't ever want them to feel like I'm belittling their culture or their identity. So I make sure I seek to understand. If I don't know about their culture, I don't know about students' culture, I make myself educated because I don't ever want to offend anybody. I know the values are different. I know some things communicational things translate differently. You have to make yourself educated. I think that's super important. It's important to me. Being Christian makes me more emotional with my students. It makes me more emotional in general. Communication is so big now. Because of that, I think communicating and just being direct with a kid, communicating one-on-one is so valuable. It's made me more forgiving and patient with my students, which is so important. You have to remember that these are kids at the end of the day. So when they're doing things that may anger you so much, or you're just frustrated, you have to remember this is their first time ever experiencing it. So if you have a bad reaction to that, they're gonna that's their first experience to that. Don't do that. Be forgiving, be nice. Yes, being Christian has taught me that. Teaching is my purpose, the reason I live. That's what I put on here. And so since I believe it's my purpose as a Christian, it has influenced me to definitely focus on being a good teacher educationally. And then these last two, sorry, I keep looking at the timer. Being OCD. Being OCD has definitely affected me a lot in the classroom for so many reasons. One, because I have to control my OCD. Sometimes I want to prioritize that and I can't. So it's definitely a learning experience. But because of that, my classroom is always very clean, very organized. I'm always having my kids have hand sanitizer. I feel my attendance is very high, and I feel that is because less kids are sick, but I'm constantly cleaning, and I'm constantly having them wash their hands. If I hear a sneeze, they're washing their hand. My OCD has caused me to be very understanding of my students who have disabilities or might be overwhelmed. I have had students with OCD, and I completely understand. I am very conscious of like, I'm probably over conscious of like light. If light's too overstimulating, noise, I never want it to be too loud. If it's too smelly or too bright, I'm always being conscious about that because I don't ever want a student to feel overstimulated or anything, because I know it ruins my day and I know it could ruin a student's day. Too many overstimulated people is just bad. And then lastly, being a student, specifically a university student, is super important. I think education is the most important thing. I have not had a good educational experience until I get to college, and I do not want that to happen to any more students. I want them to love learning. And because of that experience, it has caused me to like really want to have a good environment for my students. Education is important, but to me, the student just understanding like life, understanding concepts, having strategies to get through things is way more important than meeting the curriculum, meeting the standards, every time. That is super important to me. I want my kids to be successful. I want them to be happy. Yeah. Do any of your sociocultural markers intersect? If so, are there any simultaneously impacting? Some of them do. I feel like my OCD one does impact all of them because there's some things that I have to compulsively do. Like in a class, things have to be clean. Sometimes I have to do things in threes. Same at church. I'm a Christian. I have to do things in threes. Yeah, being at school, very interesting. What else? I feel like my Christian always pertains to everything. I bring God into like everything in my life. So I feel that he definitely touches base in school, with me being lower class, with me having OCD, with me being a mixed person. That definitely intersects. And what else? I feel like being lower class and being a student, those intersect the most because I grew up poor. We were always taught like, since you grew up poor, the only way to get money is to get a degree and get a good job. So we were all of us kids got a degree. All of us went to a university. That was super important because none of us wanted to be poor. That was kind of the mindset behind that. Yeah, this is such a good topic. I feel like this was such a great topic and an interesting topic. I loved making this.